Mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, keep your aspiration ardent and sincere, and never forget that you are the child of the Divine. It will prevent you from doing anything unworthy of the Divine children. With my love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. Words of our Divine Mother, taken from the collective works of our Divine Mother, question and answers of 1953, page 52. Question, Sweet Mother, are not offering and surrender to the Divine the same thing? For this, our Divine Mother says, they are two aspects of the same thing, but not altogether the same. One is more active than the other. They do not belong to quite the same plane of existence. For example, you have decided to offer your life to the Divine. You take that decision. But all of a sudden, something altogether unpleasant, unexpected happens to you, and your first moment is to react and protest. Yet, you have made the offering, and you have said once for all, my life belongs to the Divine. And then suddenly an extremely unpleasant incident happens that can happen, and there is something in you that reacts, that does not want it. But here, if you want to be truly logical with your offering, you must bring forward this unpleasant incident, make an offering of it to the Divine, telling Him very sincerely, let your will be done. Let your will be done. If you have decided it that way, it will be that way. And this must be a willing and spontaneous adhesion. So it is very difficult. Our Divine Mother says, even for the smallest thing, something that is not in keeping with what you expected, what you have worked for, instead an opposite reaction coming in, spontaneously, irresistibly, you draw back. No, not that. If you have made a complete surrender, a total surrender, well, it does not happen like that, as you are as quiet, as peaceful, as calm in one case as in the other. And perhaps you had the notion that it would be better if it happened in a certain way, but if it happens differently, you find that this also is all right. You might have, for example, worked very hard to do a certain thing, so something might happen. You might have given much time, much of your energy, much of your will, and all that not for your own sake, but say for the divine work, that is the offering. Now, suppose that after having taken all this trouble, done all this work, made all these efforts, it all goes just the other way around. It does not succeed. If you are truly surrendered, you say, it is good, it is all good, it's all right. I did what I could as well as I could. Not, it is not my decision. Now, it is not my decision, it is the decision of the Divine. I accept entirely what He decides. I accept entirely what He decides. On the other hand, if you do not have this deep and spontaneous surrender, you tell yourself, how is it? I took so much of trouble to do a thing which is not a selfish purpose, which is for the divine work, and this is the result. It is not successful. 99 times out of 100, it is like that. True surrender is a very difficult thing. Question, Sweet Mother, for self-surrender, should one continue to do what one ought to do? For this, our Divine Mother says, continue to do what one to do. What is clearly shown as the thing that ought to be done, what is to be done, whether one succeeds or does not succeed, whether the result is what one thinks or expects or isn't, that has no importance. One continues. Question. Sweet mother, but one tries. If one makes a mistake unconsciously, how can one know? For this, a divine mother says, if you are quite sincere, you know. Not to know one's fault is always the sign of an insincerity somewhere, and generally it is hidden in the vital. When the vital consents to collaborate, which is already a big step, when it decides that it is too going to work, when it decides that it too is going to work, to devote all its effort and all its energy to accomplish the work, even then there is underneath, well hidden somewhere, a sort of, how shall I call it, an expectation that things will turn out well and the result will be favorable, and that wields the complete sincerity. For this expectation is an egoistic personal thing, and this wields the full sincerity. Then you do not know. But if one is altogether absolutely sincere, as soon as what one is doing is not exactly what should be done, one feels it very clearly, not violently, but very clearly, very precisely. No, not this. And then, if one has no attachment, immediately it stops. Instantaneously, it stops. But one has attachment even for a disinterested work. That's what you must understand. You have given your life for a cause that is not egoistic, but the ego is there all the same. And you have a way of doing the thing which is special, personal to you, and you have within you a huge hope, not to speak of a desire, that the result will be like this, that you will get this and it will be done. A divine mother says, even a work that is not done for yourself but which you have undertaken, you expect that it will succeed, that you will have success, not personally for the thing you have undertaken. The work that you're doing, well, that brings in just a little of something like that. Down below, quite hidden, quite a tiny thing which is little, not very straight, a little bent, twisted, and then you do not know. But if that were not there, as soon as you fail to do exactly what should be done precisely, it is as delicate a moment as the thousandth part of a millimeter would be. Yes, it is there, and that is sufficient. I was mistaken. But you must have that absolute sincerity, which precisely does not want at any cost to blunder, which will do anything, give up everything rather than live in any kind of illusion. But it is very difficult. It takes time and much labor. When you are doing a thing, always those two, the mind and the vital, are there, trying to draw some benefit or other out of what you're doing, the benefit of personal satisfaction, the benefit of happiness, the benefit of a good opinion that you have of yourself. It is difficult not to deceive oneself. Question, sweet mother, what is the exact way of feeling that we belong to the divine and the divine is acting in us? For this, our Divine Mother says, you must not feel with your head because you may think so, but that's something vague. You must feel with your sense feeling. Naturally, one begins by wanting it with the mind because that is the first thing that understands. And then one has an aspiration here, pointing out to the heart. Our Divine Mother says one has an aspiration here with a flame which pushes you to realize it. But if you want it to be truly the thing, well, you must feel it. You are doing something, suppose, for example, you are doing exercises or weightlifting. Now, suddenly, without you knowing how it happened, now, suddenly, without you knowing how it happened, suddenly you have the feeling that there is a force infinitely greater than you, greater, more powerful, a force that does the lifting for you. Your body becomes something almost non existent, and there is this something that lifts. And then you will see when that happens to you, you will no longer ask how it should be done. You will know that does happen. It depends upon people, depends upon what dominates in their being. Those who think have suddenly the feeling that it is no longer they who think, that there is something which knows much better, sees much more clearly, which is infinitely more luminous, more conscious in them, which organizes the thoughts and words, and then they write. But if the experience is complete, it is no longer they who write, it is the same. Things that takes hold of the hand and makes it right. Well, one knows at that moment that the little physical person is just a tiny insignificant tool trying to remain as quiet as possible in order not to disturb the experience. Yes, at any cost must the experience be disturbed. It suddenly you say, oh, look how strange it is. For this, the child says, sweet mother, how can we reach that state? For this, our divine mother says, aspire for it, want it. Try to be less and less selfish, but not in the sense of becoming nice to other people or forgetting yourself, not that. Have less and less the feeling that you are a person, a separate entity, something existing in itself, isolated from the rest. And then, above all, it is that inner flame, that aspiration, that need for the light. It is a kind of luminous enthusiasm that seizes you. It is an irresistible need to melt away, to give oneself to exist only in the divine. And then, above all is that inner flame, that aspiration, that need for the light. It is a kind of luminous enthusiasm that seizes you. It is an irresistible need to melt away, to give oneself to exist only in the divine. At that moment, you have the experience of your aspiration. But that moment should be absolutely sincere and as integral as possible, and all this must occur not only in the head, not only here, but must take place everywhere in all cells of the body. The consciousness integrally must have this irresistible need. The thing lasts for some time, then diminishes, gets extinguished. You cannot keep those things for very long. But then it so happens that a moment later, or the next day, or sometime later, suddenly you have the opposite experience. Instead of feeling this ascent, all that this is no longer there, and you have the feeling of the descent, the answer, and nothing but the answer exists. Nothing but the divine thought, the divine will, the divine energy, the divine action exists any longer, and you too, you are no longer there. That is to say, it is the answer to your aspiration. It may happen immediately afterwards. That is very rare, but may happen. If you have both simultaneously, then the state is perfect. Usually they alternate more and more closely until the moment there is a total fusion. Then there is no more distinction. I heard a Sufi mystic who was besides a great musician, an Indian, saying that for the Sufis there was a state higher than that of adoration and surrender to the divine, and than that of devotion, that this was not the last stage. The last stage of progress is when there is no longer any distinction. You have no longer this kind of adoration or surrender or consecration. It is a very simple state in which one makes no distinction between the divine and oneself. They know this, it is even written in their books. It is commonly known condition in which everything becomes quite simple. There is no longer any difference, no longer that kind of ecstatic surrender to something which is beyond you in every way, which you do not understand, which is merely the result of your aspiration, your devotion. There is no difference any longer. When the union is perfect, there is no longer any difference. For this, the child says, Sweet Mother, is this the end of self progress? For this, our Divine Mother says, There is never any end to progress. Never any end. You can never put a full stop there. And then the child says, Sweet Mother, can that happen before the transformation of the body? For this, our Divine Mother says, before the transformation of the body, this is a phenomenon of consciousness. For instance, the physical consciousness may have this experience even for years before the cells change. There is a great difference between the physical consciousness, the body consciousness, and the material body. This takes a long time because it is a thing that has never been done. That state, as I already told you, is commonly known state which has been realized by some people, the most advanced, the highest among the mystic. But the transformation of the body has never been done by anyone. And it takes terribly a long time. Sri Aurobindo, one day I asked him, how long will it take to transform the body? He did not hesitate. He said, something like 300 years. 300 years from when, says the child, for this Divine Mother says, 300 years from the time one has the consciousness I was just speaking about. No, the conclusion, what you must succeed in doing is to be able to prolong life at will, not to leave the body until one wants to. Our Divine Mother says, so if one has resolved to transform the body, well, one must wait with all the necessary patience. 300 years, 500 years, 1,000 years, it doesn't matter. The time needed for the change. As for me, I see that 300 years is a minimum. To tell you the truth, with the experience I have of things, I think it's truly a minimum. Just imagine, says our Divine Mother, you never thought about it, have you? How is your body built? In a purely animal way, with all the organs and functions. You are absolutely dependent. If your heart stops, even for the 1,000th part of a second, you're gone, and that's the end. The whole thing works automatically without your conscious will. Happily for you, for if you had to supervise the functioning, it would have gone the wrong way long ago. All that is there. Everything is necessary because it is organized in that manner. You cannot do without an organ, at least totally. There must be something in you representing it. Our Divine Mother says transformation implies that all this purely material arrangement is replaced by an arrangement of concentrations of force having taken certain types of different vibrations, substituting each organ by a center of conscious energy moved by a conscious will, directed by a movement coming from above, from higher regions. No stomach, no heart any longer, no circulation, no lungs, no. All this disappears. It is replaced by a whole set of vibrations representing what those organs are symbolically. For the organs are only the material symbols of certain centers of energy. They are not essentially reality. They simply give it a form or a support in certain given circumstances. The transformed body will then function through its real centers of energy and not any longer through the symbolic representatives such as were developed in the animal body. Therefore, first of all, you must know what your heart represents in the cosmic energy and what the circulation represents, what the stomach and the brain represent. To begin with, you must first be conscious of all that, and then you must have at your disposal the original vibrations of that which is symbolized by these organs. And you must slowly gather together all these energies in your body, change each organ into a center of conscious energy which will replace the symbolic movement by the real one. You believe it will take only 300 years to do that? I believe it will take much more time to have a form with qualities which will not exactly be those we know but will be much superior. A form that one naturally dreams to see plastic. As the expression of your face changes with your feelings, so the body will change, not the form, but within the same form in accordance with what you want to express with your body. It can become very concentrated, very developed, very luminous, very quiet, with a perfect plasticity, with a perfect elasticity, and then a lightness at wills. Have you ever dreamt of giving a kick to the ground and then soaring into the air, flying away? You move about. You push a little with your shoulder. You will go this way. You push again, you go that way. And when you are wherever you want to go, it's like that. Very easy. And finally, you have finished. You come back, enter your body. Well, you must be able to do that with your body, also certainly things related to respiration, but there will no longer be any lungs. There's a true movement behind, a symbolic movement which gives you this capacity of lightness. You do not belong any longer to the system of gravitation. You escape it, and so for each organ. Our Divine Mother says there is no end to imagination. To be luminous whenever one wants it, to be transparent whenever one wants it. Naturally, there is no longer any need of any bones also in the system. It is not a skeleton with skin and viscera, it's another thing. It is concentrated energy obeying the will. This does not mean that there will be no longer be any definitive recognizable forms. The forms will be built by qualities rather than by solid particles. It will be, if one may say so, a practical or a pragmatic form. It will be supple, mobile, light at will, in contrast to the fixity of the gross material form. So, to change this into what I just described, I believe 300 years are truly very little. It seems more and more that are needed, perhaps. A very, very, very concentrated work, says our Divine Mother.